Amen.
Hi team, this is Ashwin here from Talend. Neha, can you confirm me? Neha, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself and just speak to me?
Hi everyone. Hello. I'm not able to hear anybody.
Hello.
Hello, Kiran joined.
Yeah, I have joined.
Hello, GB Paul here.
Hello and welcome everyone. Hi and welcome everyone. If we can request that you mute your mics if you're not the presenters. And welcome to this webinar. Thanks so much for joining us today for this program that we're co-hosting with Talend. And we're going to talk about a topic that is very special to all of us. We all have it. We all have lots and lots of it, but usually it is a question of, it's here, there, everywhere, and how do we organize it? How do we manage it? So that's what we're going to be discussing in today's session. And to help us do that, we have two really, really good expert speakers. So we have Ashwin Khorana from Jana Small Finance Bank, and he's a Chief Information Officer there. And we have Aswin James Christy from Talend, who is our co-host for this webinar as well. So before we start, some quick housekeeping. If I could request that you go on mute, and also you do not need to share your video. It will actually save you bandwidth as well. And if you have questions while the speaker is presenting, you can put them into the chat window, and one of the speakers will respond to you. And if you have questions, again, we have time at the end of the session as well to address that. So the format is going to be that we get started with Ashwin Khorana, who will share his thoughts, and then follow that with Aswin James, then followed by open questions. And but throughout, we will be also looking at the chat window and taking questions there. So my name is Jessie Paul. I am the CEO of Paul Writer. I am your host and moderator for today's session. And it is my honor to hand the floor over to Ashwin Khorana now. Ashwin, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Jesse. Welcome everybody to this webinar. I personally am doing a webinar the first time, so if I go wrong somewhere, please wave for me to know that either I'm fast or slow in presenting my thoughts and what I know about the subject. I'm going to be talking about enterprise information management and analytics, and there is a question to which I still have to find an answer, whether it's a continuous journey or a destination. Being working in the banking industry for the past 32 years, we started off with a warehouse which was frankly on a FoxPro database, and I'm talking of a FoxPro database in an international bank, which then went on to move on to a warehouse which was hosted out of a hardcore P series environment, DB2 databases, which again turned out to be an OLTP. As we progressed off, it went on to become a columnar database warehouse solution, and till today we are not able to commit to our customers an online warehouse query that we need to do. So there are those kind of challenges we still face today. It's progressed a lot. It's progressed a lot from a 21-day delay into providing MIS reports. I'm talking in 93, 94 to a 6-hour delay that we have today. So I move on to my first slide, where you see there is an other slides on, Jesse? Hello?
Yeah, the slides are just going on. Just give me a second.
You want me to share? I can share from here. Yeah. We can move on to the next slide.
we've gone to the next slide.
Yeah. So data warehouse in an organization is an elephant in terms of size of data as well as the cost it takes for us to maintain, manage, run, and provide the outputs to the business divisions that is required for them to take decisions. It started off with just being an MIS and basic report repository that we would have, and went on to then expand to having customer analysis from a perspective of if a new product launch needs to happen, what kind of customers do we have in the ecosystem which can be maximized for a cross sell. It went on to then add channel analysis to it. Internet banking came in, and people wanted to see what kind of transactions are being carried out, what time of the day is critical for the bank to keep the services available to the customer so that they are able to do the transactions. We went on to do performance analytics with regards to availability, with regards to transaction times, with regards to how fast the services are for the customer. Is there a wait time? Is there frustration around? Then came the social media era, where everybody wanted to track the sentiment of the customer on social media. Is the customer happy with the services being provided? Is the customer happy with the organization? That came in. All these things, as they started to get added in, started to increase the volume and the velocity of the data that was coming our way, which needed organizations to move from the technologies they were in to what is available today to match the speed and provide information as required. I go on to the next slide. Yeah, I'm able to see it now. There is what we call in every activity that gets planned, there is a stage of maturity that we attain as we progress over the years. This also follows the same journey. I mean, there is no way you can reach activating in the first step of your planning to have a warehouse to deliver to build models and deliver to what the business needs. It always goes through its stages of maturity, starting from what happened, moving on to analyzing it, then operationalizing it. From ad hoc reporting, you move into scheduled reporting, scheduled models coming your way, scheduled analytics reaching you. From there, it goes to predicting. Can we predict from the data we hold? And finally, it's activating. It is, in my view, a journey depending on how quick the organization adapts to the information coming in their way and to use the information effectively. It's anything between a 2.5 to a 7-year journey that organizations take. It's not just about maturity of systems. It is about data. It is about the quality of data. It is about the ownership of data. So all this come in different stages of maturity when a warehouse is being put into the organization for wider usage other than just financial reporting or MIS reporting. Obviously, as time goes by, we find data volume grows, the number of users start to grow. As people start to believe in reports coming their way, the requests to get the reports online start to increase, and that has been seen by us in this organization, in my previous organization, where once people started to get confident about the models coming out, the reports coming their way, they wanted it online, they wanted it first thing in the morning. So that starts to grow. Depth of analysis, obviously with data, if the data is right, analysis is extremely useful. That again is something which comes from various quarters of the organizations as to predictive analysis. Is there something that we can predict from what is happening, or is there something that, you know, I mean, I was going through a case study where a storm, when it was predicted in the US, Walmart had diverted its truck to move to those locations where they felt the items will be required more. It was all on the basis of that they probably had the best warehouse in the world for the retail industry at that point in time. And it was not created overnight. It was not created overnight. I move on to the next slide. Yeah, it's there. Now, before you start to build a data warehouse, or even you start to expand the data warehouse, I'm sure every organization will be having a warehouse in some form or fashion. But before it needs to start to expand expand for things more advanced and in a more matured delivery model. It is extremely important to have governance, policies, and rules defined. To give you an example, we as part of the bank, the ownership of data lied, let's say, for CASA products with product, and we wanted to introduce credit cards. The credit card unit was completely different from the CASA product unit, but ultimately the customer was the same. The debate happened with regards to who owns the customer data. Now, credit card wanted some data to be changed. They said the mobile number that is stored in the record is not the current one, or the customer now uses a different mobile number. But the bank policies mandated a method to change the number. So you could not just change the number, go ahead and do things that you wanted to do. So that is where data ownership came into play as to who is the owner of the data. I think critical data elements or entities that you have in your warehouse, they need to have an owner. Because if they don't have an owner, the probability of incorrect data entering into the warehouse is very, very high. Data moves from one system to another, but everybody should know that date of birth of a customer comes from the CRM system and nowhere else. Everywhere else, it's a data that has come from the CRM, which is pasted here, and everybody is sure that there is only one point of correction, input or deletion that is available for this element of data. Integrity. Today, we are pushing data from one system to another. We used enterprise service bus to define define interfaces which will connect multiple systems and pass data from one service to another. Now, how are we making sure that the data that has been passed has been absorbed by the upstream solution or the downstream solution in the way it is supposed to be absorbed to? So it is important to have data integrity check methods in place where you're sure that the data is complete, has reached the destination in a right and consistent manner. I touched upon the data modification criteria. It's on the basis of who's the owner of the data. Data protection for us in the banking industry, data protection is extremely important. It is very, very important that the customer privacy data doesn't get shared even in a test environment. So data protection controls, when somebody wants the data, what is it that we need to be doing to ensure that it reaches the right destination and not in the wrong hands. Data retention policies, over a period of time, data does become obsolete. Again, in banking industry, we are supposed to be storing some data for 10 years. There is a retention policy in place. You have to identify the retention policies required in the industries in which you are to see what is the time of retention, because dead data in the system costs a lot of money, and it is important that right retention policies are applied for the data that comes and gets stored in the warehouse. And then obviously the most important one, completeness, consistency, accuracy, and validity. If these four things are not there, then the data in your warehouse is of no use, and you'll end up doing analysis on data which is incorrect and gives you results which don't meet the expectations once you start to use the data for all your models and sales and production analysis that gets carried out. I'll move on to the next slide. Yeah. There are critical considerations that we need to be, there are critical considerations that we need to have with regards to setting up a warehouse, with regards to even planning to upgrade a warehouse. If I have to share a practical example, we had a view of the end state model of a warehouse that we needed in an earlier organization I worked with. But the journey we took was a step-by-step journey. We said we will first do this bit of the creation of the warehouse, and then we move on to the next bit till we go on to the most matured space of reporting that we needed in the organization. And those kind of decisions are very, very important. But one thing that we ensured was that what we went was with a modern technology that is available. We didn't want to reuse the technology that we have in form of databases and things that those are already in the organization. We had to look at scale. We had to look at the demand that is going to come our way, and on the basis of which we decided on a technology which was very current, which we knew can sustain over a period of 3 to 4 years at least to provide us information in a timely manner. And with that, we also segregated it out. We said a business intelligence team needs to be looking at running the operations of this warehouse and not leave it with IT. I mean, generally what organizations do is it becomes another part of an IT operations, which is not the case. If you want to maximize the use of it, one of the critical considerations is to have a business intelligence team running the warehouse, ensuring that they plant people from their team into various businesses so that no ad hoc development starts around the warehouse. So these are the sort of things that have to be considered in the first stage of warehouse being put in the organization. We need to ensure that it is designed for volume and pace of data. Data coming our way is not going to reduce. It is only going to increase. More and more channels, more and more social media activities, more we trying to understand what the customer does. These are the kind of things that are going to keep on coming our way. And the size of the data is going to be humongous. It is not small. It is something that should be used by end departments and not necessarily a central operations team only. That should be another consideration. With the kind of visualization technologies that are now available to use, to view the data, to understand the data, to look at the trends, it is important that almost every department in the organization should become self-sufficient to extract the data out of this warehouse. Easy to adapt to dynamic changes in data volume and analytic workloads. This is self-explanatory. Like I explained, that data, the first warehouse that we set up, our time to start reporting was 21 days. And we moved to a situation where our time came down to 6 hours. But there was still certain information that could be provided in an online manner, or the speed of retrieval is very, very fast as compared to the old technologies used. So I think that becomes an important consideration with regards to availability, with regards to modification, if we need to carry out in any form an allowed modification. It should be allowed to be done. It should allow for data exploration and quick reporting. As the front end visualization comes into faced was our data warehouse was restricted by number of people who could access it. I think to lay down the ground rules now, it should all be enterprise wide. There shouldn't be there shouldn't be any restriction placed on who can use it and who cannot use it. I think information available to people who need it is what should be the parameter, and not about how many should use it. Data insight should be always up to date and directly accessible. This is the same as the previous point that I spoke about. Empowers enterprises to shift their focus from system management to analysis. It should not be about how much time it is going to take to generate my reports or to have the data warehouse updated and things of those sort. It should be about when will I get the analysis that I need. That's a critical point to consider when you're planning to when you're planning to either move or create a new warehouse. Operates painlessly at any scale and makes it possible to combine diverse data, both structured and unstructured. Till 5 years ago, we were only working on structured data. In the last 5 years, actually 70% of the warehouse is about unstructured data. Whether it's emails, whether it is media analytics, whether it is sentimental analytics, whether it is conversations happening in the call center, there is so much that is getting into the warehouse to do an analysis of customer experience and service improvement, that it is important that both kind of data seamlessly come, merge, and provide you with the information you need. I leave this session with one question. Is cloud the way to go and build a warehouse? Frankly, I don't have an answer. But with the kind of needs which are so dynamic in nature, I mean, today cloud is the solution to look at for anything that is dynamic. Personal experience, if I have to put, we use the cloud for testing and for development. We haven't really gone to use the cloud for data warehouse or even things that are related to any of our systems that we deploy, whether channels or core banking and things like that. So they're all in-house. But testing is an area where we go do ramp up and down very, very fast. And that's the space where we have used it. But looking at the way warehouses need to be scaling up quick, to be scaling down if it is required, to provide access from anywhere at the speed which is consistent, does not get bogged down with the limited amount of links available for you to connect from outside in an in-sourced data center. Cloud is the way to go in the future, but when and how will this whole maturity come in? It's anybody's guess at the moment. That's it from me. That's the last slide. No, sorry. There's one more. There was a very interesting analysis that was put across by a team member, and he had said that it is not just about the warehouse, it is about the environment. And the formulas that are there in the slide, it's about OO plus NT is equal to EOO. It's old organization plus new technology is equal to expensive old organization. The next one is old organization plus old technology is equal to status quo. You just remain where you are. It is new organization plus new technology is equal to enhanced results. And I think this slide says it all. So it's not just about buying technology. It's about aligning your complete organization to how to maximize and use what is coming the way. It is not about changing the system to meet your requirements. It's about changing the way you work to align to the new technologies coming your way so that you can maximize the benefit of it. That's it with me. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Ashwin. Very insightful, and there are questions as well in the chat window, and we'd appreciate if you could reply to that. Yeah, and if I can request the participants as well to post their questions for Ashwin in the window. And our next speaker will now be Aswin James from Talend. So over to you, Aswin.
Thanks, Jesse. I'm just sharing my screen as well.
Great. And again, if we can request participants to keep posting questions in the chat window.
Yeah, I did see some questions from the participants. While I'll continue to answer that post my session, or you can, one of the administrators here can definitely read out to me or Ashwin Khorana post my session, and we can definitely answer that. Thanks, Ashwin, for your wonderful insights. I think since you come from over 33 decades of experience, I think your insights have been very, very valuable in terms of the operational challenges that customers face from a customer standpoint and how to mitigate that. For those of you who have listened very carefully to Ashwin's statement, we are talking about something that's called as liberation of. What does liberation of data mean? I started my career by writing a program and a web code to download SAP, put it in an Excel format, have another shell script, read it from an FTP folder, and prepare my data warehouse. Gone are those days where different systems needed different varieties of interactions. But we are coming back to an era where newer data systems or newer data sources are the norm. I'm in a place today where the customer is using TensorFlow, Cassandra, Amazon buckets, Azure for machine learning, Google APIs for geocoding machine learning, and things like that. So your data sources or your data pipelines could be different, but the way you interact with them is what we call as liberating your data with Talend. And I will speak to you about some of the insights that we have gathered here at Talend, go into the product that we have, to the problems that Ashwin shared, which means providing the right data with the confidence at the right time. We will talk in detail about that. In 2017, RightScale is an analyst which focuses on the cloud side of analysis across enterprise customers. RightScale did an analysis with the customer bases of Talend as well as AWS as well. And they came out with a very interesting proposition. I would like to call about two major features or two major asks from customers. One, optimizing existing cloud usage. Two, moving more workloads to the clouds. Now, these are two major themes that most of our customers had responded with. In fact, that aligned with the customer advisory group that we have at Talend. We call it as a customer advisory board, the CAB. The CAB comprises of the top 10 CIOs across the world among Talend customers. And the customer advisory board had also responded on similar lines. And that kind of laid the roadmap for the focus of Talend in the cloud platform. And today, as we're speaking in 2018, we are doing a cloud-first approach. And even talking from an Indian context, we've got a lot of customers talking cloud-first and on-premise second. And we will talk in detail about what do we mean by a cloud-first strategy. Ashwin covered this in detail. I may kind of give you just a quick overview about right. We've got newer data sources. We've got data sources like Hadoop, which is very prominent if you take the big data world, HDFS, Hive, HBase. You've got the cloud data sources. Interestingly, Snowflake, Amazon Redshift for processing, your Amazon S3 for storage, your Azure data warehouse, and things like that coming into picture. And your legacy data sources are here to stay. You will still have your AS400 or your mainframe systems if you're working in a bank. You will have your Oracle to stay, and new data types that are coming in. If you take into, for example, Cassandra data type, date is stored in a different format, timestamp is stored in a different format, and things like that. And cloud, interestingly, has a lot of new age data sources coming in on a day-to-day basis. And the requirements from customers today are all becoming real time. Gone are those days when I had to run an 8-hour job, which runs at 10 o'clock in the night, completes at 6 o'clock in the morning, have a 2-hour buffer before the business users come into and then start looking into the reports. Gone are those days. People want instantaneous answer. We all belong to an Uber or an Ola kind of generation where we want instant answers at a click of a button. And that's where the requirements are changing as well. Ashwin Khorana basically told us what the status quo means. The status quo for any company today is to remain just using on-premise, being stuck in data silos, being not able to bring in self-service into picture, not being able to govern the data that they have, not able to have a business IT collaboration done. Interestingly, I'm working with a very large private bank in the country where the business users want to query the data on Hadoop. Now, business users do not want to write a query, definitely, but they want to have an application where they can interact with the data, play around with the data, and give the feedback on how the data looks to the IT. Now, this is what we are trying to solve in the liberated world. Liberated world talks about not just cloud, it talks about a multi-cloud era. Now, what do we mean by multi-cloud? Any customer who's onboarding on cloud, or if you evaluated a cloud, would know that some of these cloud vendors specialize in certain things. For example, Azure could be great in storage. Google could be great for their APIs for machine learning, APIs for natural language processing. And Amazon, known for its scalability, could be great for running your EMR cluster for processing. And this is what we call as a multi-cloud strategy, where customers pick and choose among the different players and different vendors, the best ones among all of these, and then try out their new age architectures. And that's the era where data works for the business. You don't have to, you're no longer creating a data pipeline which runs for 8 hours, cooks a report, ID looks into it, and then feed the report. But it's like all on a real-time basis. The systems are synchronized on a real-time basis. And the entire system is governed with integrity in place. And we call it as a data as a team sport era, because everybody in the organization, everybody in the customer organization, whether they are IT, whether there's a person is an analyst or a business user, should get involved as part of a data journey. And obviously, budgets are a bit optimized when it comes to cloud because it's a subscription and things like that. But it's more optimized because you're choosing the best in breed of different cloud technologies or technologies on premise as in how you would need it. The cloud market is getting even more exciting this year. Look into the amount of investment that the cloud players are looking into. If you look into the size and the investment, it is quite the converse. Amazon leading on the top, Google on the bottom, but Google is making major inroads into the cloud ecosystem with newer products, newer stable releases, and Google is basically exposing most of the cloud services that they were using in-house. TensorFlow, for example, came out, and new age stuff like Apache Carbon comes from the Google platform. And the investment that they're making on the cloud journey to scale up on the GCP platform is significant. And same as with Azure and Amazon as well. And Talend is capitalizing on this cloud market. And we are also investing a lot of money or dollars from a research and development perspective to optimize and to scale up to new age customer architectures, whether you want to write into Aurora DB, read from Aurora DB, you want to execute a Docker over a Kubernetes cluster on Azure, definitely possible. You want to do a Google Data Proc or a BigQuery, execute over a Spark program over there and get the output back, definitely possible with Talend. And that's the problem statement that Talend is addressing, right? For those of you who have not heard of Talend before, or this is the first time you're hearing or not sure of the history, we started around 2005 and we are around 13 years in operations. We started off essentially as a DI only player, ETL. For those of you in 2005, 2006, having Informatica on your resume would land up a job. And that's the era that Talend started. And we started off with an open source flavor, basically to capitalize in the open source market. And to this date, we are an Apache core-based license with enterprise support to our customers. And today, as we are speaking, what we really take pride about is our open source downloads is 3 million plus and counting on a day-to-day basis in terms of the number of open source downloads that we have. I did speak to you about 2017 as a focus. 2017 for Talend was all about multi-cloud and real-time capabilities. 2018, as we're speaking, it's all about Docker and Kubernetes support. We are going to get into an era of serverless computing where you shut down and switch on these servers on demand. And as you have seen, the progress of Talend over the years, we have matured ourselves into a full-fledged data management vendor. A kind of continuation on the earlier slide, in 2013, we made our decision to support big data systems. What we looked upon in 2013 was, can we, those of you on the call new to ETL world, ETL is what's a replacement for PL SQL. You had to write 10,000, 20,000 lines of code, and that became automated with a PL SQL. And PL SQL was not possible when there was heterogeneous systems involved. And essentially, the same problem addresses in the big is being addressed in the big data world as well. You've got different frameworks like MapReduce, Spark, and in 2013, our first release basically supported MapReduce code. You don't have to write a MapReduce code. Talend will generate the MapReduce code behind the scenes for you. And then we added on features by supporting it to the Yarn Resource Manager. And from there, we were able to check it up. In 2015, we supported Spark. And as we are speaking today, we support the latest version of Spark as well. As we were embarking on our big data journey, and Talend is widely regarded and well known in the market for the big data journey, we also started our cloud ramp up process. What we essentially did, and what we are quite different between different companies that you are aware of, is the fact that we essentially took the same product on premise and made it multi-tenant, and we have our integration platform as service. There are other integration players in the market today. If you do some more research, you'll find some of the prominent players, but they have a different platform, a different edition as compared, or a stripped down version of their on-premise product. But at Talend, we essentially took the same one, shipped it on-premise on Amazon, and made our integration platform as service. At Talend, we call it as a one architecture or one platform or a unified platform. I've done this many times. Ashwin Khorana, being a customer, would have done this many times as well. And many of you on the call today who are from customer organizations would have done this as well. If you had to buy an ETL license, or if you identify that you need an ETL product for you, you go through phases of journey, right? And it takes quite a significant amount of time in terms of deciding how to identify the product, go through the procurement process, go through the RFP, legal approval, negotiation, and then starts the complex process of finding out infrastructure for that, finding out resources, signing off the installation, configuring the hardware, then configuring all the mappings, and then complete the approach of complete the SDLC lifecycle and go live on it. And in the process of that, you're going to define the data sources, define the connectivity, define the architecture, and things like that. Now, what if that entire process, and this is the same with Talend, even if you buy Talend on premise as well, you have to go through this life cycle because you're installing it and configuring it yourself. What gets automated with the cloud version is all these processes kind of combine into like 4 or 5 processes. You define your data sources, your targets, do the security review, and then go live with monitoring. Obviously, yes, you have to negotiate on the subscription contract and things like that, but there's always a trial to try out. Cloud is even more interesting. Now that's applicable for customers who are purely on premise, but they do not want to go through the complexity of buying a cloud product, of buying an on-premise product. Rather, they want to get started quickly. An example could be I have my data in Oracle. I want to load it into my warehouse, which is Teradata. It's on-premise to on-premise. And that's something that you can do using the Talend Integration Cloud. I'm not sure of this, the red lines. If somebody can stop the annotation feature. So we spoke about the one Talend architecture, and using this slide, I'll kind of explain you the various features of what Talend offers. Talend primarily is an ETL company which connects to various data sources. Currently, as we are speaking, we have connectors to 1,200 applications, databases, file systems. Now, all these 1,200 applications are packaged and shipped as part of all our product editions. We do not charge you for connectors, which means today you're writing from, let's say, a Workday to your Oracle database, or your Oracle database to SAP. Tomorrow, your Oracle can be replaced by, let's say, an Amazon Redshift. The same product can be used without any additional licenses to Talend. We give all the connectors or components, as we call it, as part of the default installation as well. Once you have ingested the data, then you can transform the records. That's the core of the core process in a data journey. You can prepare the records for your data scientist, then curate it. Curation is all about, I have error records, I want a manual person to review it, to take actions on top of the record, and then publish it so that you can consume it in a different fashion. I want to have an ESB style architecture, I want to have a streaming architecture, I want to have a batch process or a real-time process. That's the publish phase. Provides you the various flexibilities in terms of the offerings. All of these methodologies are kind of supported by Talend. The thing to note, I keep stressing on the data as a team sport architecture. Now, this is important. The developers work on top of the studio, which is a thick client. They are involved. The analysts or data scientists typically use our data preparation software, which is a self-service data integration tool. The operation team get involved by interfacing with our data stewardship application. Now, we will cover these prep stewardship as part of our subsequent webinar, and the entire business owners, entire business can then look into where the data is moving, how the data is moving using our metadata architecture, the entire governance architecture, right? Everything is metadata driven. You shall be able to track lineage and have governance mechanisms into who accesses what in terms of the data movement as well. Moving on, we refer Talend as a true or a complete data management solution on the cloud. Many there is a complete management solution, which is a unified platform which addresses all different parts, single bundle. Wide variety of use cases. I call it as we ladder access. Now, ideal business users, they cannot write SQL query, but they are very good with Excel. Now, can you give them access to, if you write a SQL code? Yes, you can, and that's what we do it with preparation software. Using data prep, they log into web portal, they select the data source that you have created for them, and they will be able to get the data that is on live and in sync with the source systems. And we follow a recipe to cook model as and when they are playing around with the data. For example, a pin code standardization is being done. They're deleting the columns. They're changing Madras into Chennai, Gurgaon into Gurugram. They're doing some of these transformations, which the analysts or business owners are very good at. We record that at the back end and then use that as part of an overall ETL flow. And that's what we call it as the integration flow. The second in multi-cloud, and most of our customers today use a hybrid architecture even on the cloud. They use Amazon separately, Google separately, and Azure separately, and they have to choose the best of breed of together, and the entire stitching process is done and automated by Talend. Trusted data. Ashwin Khorana stressed on it. If the business owners do not trust the report that you give, they're not going to use the report at all. All your efforts goes waste, and the business ID always have a conflict in that. How can you give trusted data? Talend bundles its data quality offering, the entire features of an enterprise data quality of any data quality tool, which includes profiling the information to find out how good or bad your information, cleansing, standardization, being able to deduplicate the record, and being able to create consolidated and trusted data. Definitely possible with the same platform. Governance and security, who accesses what, being able to have remediation steps in terms of data anomaly and things like that. Scaling on demand, very, very, very given with Talend. There are two steps. You can add more servers, or if you want to push the processing into EMR, for example, A classic example could be I have a campaign running for Diwali, and my weekend loads take around 16 CPU cores. But looking into my Diwali campaign, I think I may need 160 CPU cores. But if I do it in a traditional way, but if I go in a big data way and I execute it on, or let's say a big data cluster like an EMR or HD Insights or a Google Data Proc, my computation would be completed in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and that's leveraging the power of the distributed architecture of Hadoop as well as Spark. Can I scale on demand? Yes, the same product, that talent integration cloud product that we're talking about, gives you all these capabilities that I just spoke to you about. Self-service, integrating your source systems with 1,200 connectors, integrating the best of clouds, being able to create trusted data, being able to have governance mechanism, and being able to scale on demand. All of them as part of the same product. Now let's talk about, let's get into the architecture of what talent integration cloud is all about, and then we'll go about a quick demo as well. The design phase is done on a thick client, but you also can edit the design on a web layer. The design phase, the scheduling phase, the monitoring phase, and the manageability phase in terms of who accesses what is all running on a multi-tenant application on AWS. At the backend, Talent uses AWS for its infrastructure. We also support private cloud. We'll support private cloud towards the end of this year. It's not yet GA yet. The cloud engines are where your actual execution takes place. Now, these again are hosted on AWS, and they are again on a multi-tenant runtime. All of these are AWS, which means they inherit all the security policies, all the security compliances that AWS has. Moving on. Now, let's talk about the design phase. What you see on this particular studio or this particular screen is the design environment. It's a thick client. For those of you familiar with Eclipse, the product is built over Eclipse, so most of you would be finding it easy to work on the product. It's got all the connectors, components. You design it in a very simple GUI manner and push the product or put the development onto the cloud. Now, once the development is done, the logic moves onto the cloud, and you'll be able to execute the data on the cloud. Now, the next 3 slides are very interesting. Now, we did speak about the various components of Talent. Now, let's understand in detail how these components play into an enterprise architecture. We spoke about Talent Studio. This is where you're doing a development. The services of Talent is all running on the Talent cloud, which is AWS. You got the cloud engine. This is where I told you that execution is going to happen. And again, this is hosted on AWS as well. The Talent Studio, as you see here, the yellow lines depict the metadata in transit. The green line depict the data in transit. Now, if you're talking about a pure SaaS or a cloud data movement, the data moves from your cloud platform, comes into the cloud engine, and goes into the target system. There is no data which is stored here. Only the metadata information is stored here. The data comes in and then goes out. Now, if you're talking about the next in architecture, which is connecting your hybrid architecture, which is connecting your SaaS offering with an on-premise tool. Now, that would mean SAP to Salesforce, your database on premise to the database on cloud. Again, your Talent Studio is again metadata connection. You define the logic here, push the logic, and instead of the cloud engine, now since you are dealing with on-premises and you do not want any latency issues, we also have something called as remote engine. Remote engine runs behind your firewall. Now, you note the line here. Now, this is where your remote engines are running. Remote engine is lying within the firewall, and the communication happens directly between your cloud provider and the remote engine. Again, no data is moved into the Talent cloud. Now, on the third architecture, which is about pure on-premise kind of integration. Now, this is for customers who have, I don't have any cloud, but I do not want to go through the complexity of installing a Talent product. Now, this Talent Studio will be behind your firewall. Again, only metadata integration between your Talend Cloud product and your on-premise behind your firewall. Now there's a remote engine, basically conveys only the status. The data moves between your firewall. Now if you look here, there is no data movement between the firewall, and only logs, error logs are transported from your remote machine onto the Talend server, which means literally there is no data movement that is happening within the firewall. You don't have to worry about anything. Even if I'm using the cloud, it's much similar to what I'm using on-premise, except that I will go live in few days instead of going through a complex installation process. You don't have to open any port in the firewall. We only use a hardened TCP port. This is a port that we use that communicates between the remote engine to the Talend Cloud, and only logs are getting moved. Yeah, kind of summarizing that, no data no data is transmitted outside the customer environment. You don't have to open any firewall TCP IP ports. The remote engine is just paired using a long-lived TCP connection from the remote engine to the TIC server, which means you don't have to go through approvals. Don't have to worry about what data, will my data get leaked outside? No, not really. Only the metadata information moves out. And even if you're worried about the logs being moved out, what we can basically do is we can apply the masking algorithm or the anonymization algorithm that are available on top of Talend, so that you can mask those sensitive information and then ship it to Talend, so that the logs do not make any sense. The credential information are stored and encrypted in the Talend server, but it can also be encrypted and stored as part of the on-premise behind the firewall scenario also. Again, we've got wide varieties of certifications for our cloud products, 17 certifications to be exact, and we inherit all the certifications from AWS as well. It's truly multi-tenant. Communications are over a secure HTTPS layer, and all data is encrypted when you're dealing with cloud to cloud, and no customer data is stored in Talend. In summary, using the Talend Cloud product, you'll get around 5x reduction in costs in terms of a normal project. And we've got this number summarized from a lot of engagements that we have done in the past, numbering thousands of them. We can go live in seconds. In fact, if you were to develop a simple job, you can go live in seconds, a complex job in a couple of days. And you can do it either on the cloud or on the on-premise as well. You can go for any of these approaches as well. With that, I come to the end of the session. I will quickly show you a demo, and we will continue with the rest of the demos in a subsequent webinar that we will do. For today's demo, what I'm going to basically do is how can you connect to the Talend product, and I will leave you with a thought process where you can try out the Talend product on a link that we will share it with you, and probably come up with more interesting questions as part of the next webinar. With that, I'm going to just share with you some of the actual product itself. We've been talking about the studio. This is the actual Talend studio. What you see here on the right hand side are the various connectors that we have. You have the big data job, connectors, you've got business applications, you've got the database connectors, the data quality, all of these come bundled as part of the product, and you can develop your mapping or your work. A sample mapping that we have done here basically is getting data from AWS, loading it into my source system, getting data from Azure, and also getting data from the cloud database and storing it for my downstream analysis. And I'm taking this particular data from these distributed vendors, multi-cloud vendors, and I've stored it in my local database. I'm applying data prep. We'll see about it in the next webinar. And as I'm moving the data, I'm also enriching the records with the Google Address API, enriching it with geocode, and I'm storing the output in Redshift. Now, this is a sample job that I have done. When I run this job, it's going to fetch from various data sources, Google, Amazon, and AWS, and then push it into Redshift. We're talking about 4 different cloud players here. In the meantime, you can also write it to an on-premise data if you want. You can do a MySQL output and then write to a MySQL also. You can do all of that as well. Right. A quick sneak preview of how the web UI looks. Now, the flows are, once you've published a job, the flows are over here. You can define the schedule of them, or you can run it on demand as well. When I run the job is submitted, and the job you'll be able to monitor it as well. You can operationalize a job. You can schedule execution plans. What we mean about execution plan is your workflow. For those of you from the world, the data warehousing or the ETL world, you can create an execution plan and say, this is how I want my job to run. I want to run it daily, or I want to run it on demand, or I want to run it once a week, and things like that. You can basically do all of that, and the output can be monitored on a very interesting web UI. You see here, this is the output. All my jobs has been 100% successful. I can be sure that all my data is in sync, and I can go into the individual flows as well and look into the logs. I can look into the logs of each of these sessions. This is the log, and this is the only metadata information that we ship back to the cloud. It was a quick demo, but we wanted to lay the thoughts for you into what you can do on top of the Talend platform. Coming to the end of our session, I want you to visit and know this website, integrationcloud.talend.com. Go there and register for our 30-day trial. You will get all the enterprise features that are available as part of the product. And I request you to definitely try it out and get back to us with any feedbacks that you may have. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, this is Jessie. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. If you have questions, we will, address it on the chat window because we're out of time. So thanks so much again. And if you have a specific question, just wait and Ashwin will reply to you. Also, some of you had asked if we will be sharing the deck. Yes, we will. Do ensure that we have your correct email ID. So you can just message us your email ID if you want it sent to a different one from the one you registered with. So thanks once again for joining us. This is the first in a series, and we do hope to see you at the next one as well. And if you have specific feedback, you can either message it to us or just ping us on email, and we will let you know. Again, thanks again. Thanks also to Ashwin and Aswin.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Everyone.